Hi, everyone. Welcome to Our Disabled Future, a series where disabled voices lead the way. I'm your host, Nico, and it is a good day for disability inclusion. Each day during Disability Pride Month and beyond, I'm amplifying real disabled stories, where we are, where we want to go, and how the heck we're going to get there. Together, I think. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Mubina. Let's dive in. Hi, Mubina. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, Nico. Thank you for, giving me this opportunity.
Of course. Tell us about yourself and about your disabled life.
So I I guess let me start from when I first had a traumatic experience when I was 18 months old. I was born in Tanzania and I went to a neighboring country when I was 18 months old and I had a vaccine, a cholera vaccine. And back then it was injection. It was not an oral one like it is today. Anyhow, at the country that I was in, there was an outbreak, a cholera outbreak. So everyone was getting vaccines, and my parents didn't know better. So they said, yeah, sure. I ended up having a reaction to it and lots of different things from start to finish, 7 to 10 days. I ended up having high fever seizures. They did a couple of exploratory surgeries. And when everything settled, in my stomach, they did the surgeries. I ended up not being able to walk anymore. So I did walk. And then I was fortunate because when I was 4 years old, my dad came to Canada. He had an opportunity to come to Canada. And that really changed the trajectory of my life. I was gonna be put into a school for people with disabilities, but they did an interview and they said, no, she can go to a regular school, which had its challenges, of course, right? But I was able to really connect when I was 10 years old because it was the year of the disabled, and I got into para sports, and that was really where things changed. So for me, pretty much most of my life, I've been a wheelchair user. So the vaccine left me unable to walk anymore, so paraplegic from the waist down. I have strong upper body mobility, etc. But that's, pretty much a little bit about me and my disability. I've encountered a lot of challenges over the years, some that, as I reflect back on, I think I personally unconsciously perpetuate it. And we can talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I've been fortunate because I went through school. I have a degree from University of Toronto. I live in Toronto, Canada, in Vaughan. And I was married for a decade and not married anymore, a single mom of a teenager. And he's been one of the greatest blessings for me. He's taught me a lot. And I had my own mindset coaching business. I still do, but I'm also a training and education manager for Ability Center out in Whitby. And that's where I get to really bring the passion I have around accessibility to the forefront and do a lot of the work to creating the change, creating that, moving steps forward in creating a barrier-free environment.
Thank you for telling us about your background and the challenges that you face currently. What does a disability friendly future look like for you?
So, one of the things that I've really um, struggled with, I guess two things. One is, belonging, right? Feeling like I'm good enough, feeling like I belong in groups. And I think that's one of the things that I find when there's barriers. So this is the social model of disability. When it comes to social model, I've never felt disabled in my life, even though I use a wheelchair. So from a career progression perspective, I've been very fortunate. And even when it came to surveys, I would never check off that I self-identify as a person with disability. But what I found is I was kind of perpetuating ableism, okay? And I was perpetuating it, and I wasn't giving myself the opportunity to be instrumental in change by not checking it off. So now to me, when it comes to the social model, it's the barriers that are out there that create the disability. Okay. So when I go somewhere, so for example, back at Easter long weekend, I went downtown Toronto to a restaurant with some friends that were here from out of town. And usually I would call and check and make sure that, the place is accessible. I didn't do it. And when we got there were stairs to get in. So now I was disabled, even though, technically I'm not I mean, technically I am, sorry, but really I've never felt like I am because I'm able to do so much in my life, right? I drive, I've been successful in work. I've been successful in personal life. And, as I mentioned, I have my son. But so to me, a disability friendly future is one where, everybody's needs are accounted for, right? So, if I think about Emily Ladau, who's a disability rights activist, she talks about special needs. So when I come back to thinking about the restaurant experience, well, you know what? The restaurant was at a higher level and there were stairs to get in. And that's what somebody who's walking can use. But somebody like myself in a wheelchair needs a ramp. It's the same thing. They needed stairs, I needed a ramp. Unfortunately, there was no ramp and I needed to be lifted up, which was not a very safe experience, in my opinion, but that's just the way I've kind of propelled through life. And so I have, unconsciously perpetuated ableism, right? We live in an ableistic society today, both from our physical environment as well as from our thinking, right? We tend to use ableistic words. We tend to have setups physically where it's ableistic, right? Like when I go to a grocery store, if my son isn't with me, well, I can't reach the top shelves. And so I have to wait until somebody comes in that aisle to read something for me, or I have to leave the aisle, go find somebody, and then get the item that I want. So to me, we really need to start thinking about the needs of people, not just people with disabilities, but people in general, because there's visible and invisible disabilities. And you want to be able to start thinking about the invisible disabilities as well, right? Not just the visible ones.
That's a really succinct answer for your disability-friendly future. Future where all needs are accounted for right at the outset. I love that vision. So, Mubina, how are we going to get there? What's your strategy? Do we need to pass legislation, increase knowledge, teach a skill? What do you think?
I think um I think awareness and education is so, so important. That's like a foundational piece. And I think there's such a lack of awareness out there. A lot of people don't even realize that they're, creating a situation where somebody will feel like they're disabled. Okay. And that comes from lack of awareness, but it also comes from, you know, lack of opportunities to, engage in conversations, to engage in dialogue such as these, right? To watch YouTube videos where you can really start to take that knowledge and, apply it. And when we start to do that, a little bit at a time, then we can collectively really make a difference. So I would say it's the education and knowledge, but taking that knowledge and really not gather it, because that's what a lot of people do with knowledge, but to start to make it a learning and to apply it. And when we start to do the small things in a big way on a consistent basis, that's when we can really make significant change.
I love that. It sounds like you've put a lot of thought into this, and I appreciate your answers. As we close our time today, Bina, I want to give you a chance that you and I, as disabled people, rarely get, and that is a chance to brag about yourself, promote anything cool you've done recently or have in the works still. If you have like an online presence and want to grow that, where can people find you? This is just free space to brag. So be your own cheerleader. Let's hear it.
So for me, honestly, it's really about making a difference, right? Leaving people with that, feeling like, you know what? Yeah, I learned something. I really can take this and make a difference, right? Um, I have a YouTube channel as well, Mubina Jaffer. Okay, that's my the handle. I'm on social media. Both Facebook is Mubina Jaffer, LinkedIn is Mubina Jaffer. Unfortunately, Instagram, my Mubina Jaffer got hacked. So now I'm Results Mindset. And as I mentioned, I've done a lot of coaching work. So I work with people of different backgrounds, different ages. I've worked with people from different parts of the world, athletes, women. And so, I do a lot of mindset work around this. And, working in this space has really been amazing for me too, because it's given me that additional layer of self-reflection and healing. Because my trauma happened when I was really young, and my parents, they did the best they could, but they had their own, healing to do around this. Now, both have passed on now, but I was also the primary caregiver for both my parents, which is quite an interesting experience for me. But it's also given me the opportunity to learn a lot about myself. And so, what I would say is, my biggest ahas have been, how I've just propelled through life and I've just pushed through. But I think if we really want to make a change, it's about really doing self-reflection. And that's what I've done over the last 2 to 3 years, and self-reflection around my disability. And so I haven't really done much on my social media around disability, accessibility, inclusion. And that's something I've been thinking a lot about. So that's where my head is in terms of, the stuff I already have on social media, and all of that is mindset work. But now I want to kind of move into, doing something around, accessibility, inclusion, belonging. And when I say accessibility, I'm not just talking about people with disabilities, okay? I'm talking about accessibility for everyone, okay? Because that's when we can really create that inclusive environment. That's when we can really create that feeling of belonging. And I think that's just a core human need that I feel is not, existent. And I think today, with the amount of technology we have, with the amount of distractions we have, and with the way, our mind tends to work, we go into this avoidance technique, right? And we tend to fall into that trap very easily. And so, take time. My biggest message for everybody watching this is to take time and do some self-reflection, right? Do some self-reflection on where you're at when you watch YouTube videos such as this one. you know, really pay attention and listen, but listen to be able to apply it to your life, because that's when you can start to make a difference. We can only control ourselves. And when we learn and to lead ourselves, we can then start to make a difference.
Love that. I can really tell you're a coaching professional. Mubina, thanks for sharing your time with me today. It takes a certain kind of bravery to be on a video like this and share your story, share your perspective. So thanks again.
Well, thank you, Nico, for the opportunity. And thank you for doing this. I think it's amazing that you're reaching out and, getting different perspectives from people, with disabilities, because I think it's so important to, share. And it's so important for people to, be able to get their perspectives here, because every person is unique. Every disability is unique, right? So another person in a wheelchair is going to have a totally different experience. And that's what makes us who we are. And you want that intersectional lived experience to be out there so people can start to really understand. And, it comes back to that awareness, right? When you start to watch podcasts such as these, you can start to really elevate your own awareness about, people with disabilities, but about yourself. Because at the end of the day, our population is aging. And so, we may not have a disability today, but we may get one down the road. And we may be a caregiver to somebody with a disability. So you want to be able to really expand yourself and expand your education. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you again. Sorry, I lost the Zoom window. All right, folks, tune in next time. Remember, this is our disabled future, and we're building it one step at a time together. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Bye.